Welcome back. This is the time for OnPoint number 2. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has once again attacked the Congress, and again in context of the minorities, but this time in context of aiming to allocate 15% of the union budget for minorities. Now, he had made this statement. Today, Amit Malviya said when he tweeted out, boss, this is the correct thing which the Prime Minister said, because yesterday a lot of people were saying that we have not been able to locate any area where UPA in any of its PIB press releases had said so. And Mr. Malviya categorically reproduced that. So I am going to put that out what the UPA had said. And then the controversy went to a different level. And the level was twofolds. One, will this controversy impinge more on Congress or BJP? The debate I am going to frame today is it going to lead to a Muslim consolidation for Congress, or this Muslim League Arop will create a powerful Hindu consolidation for Bharatiya Janata Party? And this is how we are going to frame the debate. But first, let us listen into what the Prime Minister said, and then I am going to play out what Amit Malviya tweeted out.
इन्होंने दलितों पिछड़ों का आरक्षण भी छीनना शुरू कर दिया है। कांग्रेस ने कर्नाटक में ओबीसी आरक्षण छीनकर मुसलमानों को दे दिया है। ये कांग्रेस के साझादे, उनके एक साथी ने बताया कि उन्होंने तो तय किया है कि उनकी सरकार बनेगी तो रामलला को फिर से टेंट में भेज देंगे और राम मंदिर को ताला लगा देंगे। लेकिन भाइयों बहनों, ये लोग भूल रहे हैं, ये मोदी है। ये मोदी के रहते धर्म के नाम पर दलितों पिछड़ों के आरक्षण की लूट करने के लिए सोच भी नहीं सकेंगे। और मोदी है तो वो लिख के रखें, उनके लिए नामुमकिन है।
So the whole debate is, when Amit Malviya tweeted that out, 15%, the question is, one, then how do you help the Muslims? Because ultimately they are also the citizens of the country. So the two-pronged debate, on which I am joined by Ajit Jha, senior journalist, and Bhanuchandra Nagarajan, political analyst, and with me in studio, Brijesh Pandey. Is it going to create a consolidation for the Congress party, Muslims, or is it going to create a consolidation for Bharatiya Janata Party of Hindus saying, boss, ye to minoritism kar rahe hain?
Well, you know what the Prime Minister is trying to do, irrespective of the statement which he is making, is that basically he is looking at a counter consolidation, and that is the reason. And he also wants to offset any damage which is caused by the Congress and other NDA alliance partner, where they are saying that the Congress, that the BJP wants 400 seats only to do away with reservation. Unfortunately, what is happening on the ground is that we are not seeing major rumblings or statements which is in any way provocative by the Muslim side, and that is the reason, despite all this Hindu-Muslim and Muslims will get reservation which is earmarked for OBC and others, that is not happening. Despite the big ticket mafia don dying or something like that. And that is the reason why, the lesser the counter consolidation, the more aggressive the approach. And that is the reason why, the Prime Minister day before yesterday in an interview said that, I do not talk about Hindu and Muslim and things like that. But today, the Prime Minister made a very clear and categorical references about this 15% budget which the Congress had promised to be allocated to Muslims. The reason why this is on and on attempt is that because the BJP is not seeing any big counter consolidation on the ground as far as Muslims or Hindu is concerned.
Okay. Mr. Jha, one, Prime Minister says that, unko rule karne ka adhikar nahi agar Hindu Musliman karenge, but he comes back to this debate again and again. So I leave that why he is doing it, because ultimately no politician does it without a cold calculation. There is always a cold calculation behind it. My question to you is, because ultimately every politician is result oriented, in your assessment, sir, is it going to create a consolidation behind Congress, or is it going to create a powerful consolidation behind Bharatiya Janata Party?
Two answers. One, See, the Prime Minister is on a defensive wicket here because the agenda of constitution linked with changes in the constitution linked with reservation, the fact that if the BJP would get 400 seats, they would change the constitution and remove reservation, was brought in by Rahul Gandhi, by the Congress party, by the India Gathbandhan, right? So Prime Minister is basically countering that because obviously there is some feedback that there might be some halchal, some change in the SC votes which were with the BJP at one time, or OBC votes which were with the BJP at one time. So therefore, he's on a defensive wicket, and the only way to hit at this is by claiming that the Congress wants to take away reservation from Muslims out of the OBC quota and from the scheduled caste quota, number one. Number two, in fact, Chidambaram had come back and made a rebuttal saying that, Article 112 of the Constitution of India contemplates only one annual financial statement, which is the union budget. How can there be two budgets? Because remember, the Prime Minister even said that, even added in Maharashtra, that the Congress is coming up with two budgets. So one for the Hindus and one for the Muslims. Now, the point is, will it start a consolidation of Muslims? I don't think so, because if you've seen the Hyderabad voting, even OAC did not get massive Muslims voting for him. Now, if those Muslims were not voting for OAC, but for Congress or let's say India Alliance partners, that would be a different thing. But I think that is not happening. In fact, this time, what is the biggest puzzle is that voters are simply silent and that they are not voting with enthusiasm. The first four phases that we saw, the voters are really, really indifferent, and that is very, very mysterious. Will it start a counter consolidation of Hindus? Obviously, Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi, as a politician, not necessarily as a prime minister, because he makes that distinction very sharply. When he's campaigning, he's Pradhan Mantri, leader of the BJP. When he is doing governance, he is prime minister, leader of the country. Therefore, that difference, sabka saath, sabka vikas, as prime minister. But when he's campaigning, he's basically gunning for the Congress. So I think what he's trying to do is unite Hindus despite this caste division that might have taken place to some extent, especially in the Hindi heartland, let's say Bihar, for example, where Nitish Kumar originally brought the caste survey, or some of the states now that are going to polls, Bihar.
Fair enough, Mr. Jha. Let me throw this question to Bhanu. Bhanu, your take on it.
Good evening, everyone. To quote Yogi Berra, it seems deja vu all over again. When I was a young activist in the late 2000s, this used to be a recurrent theme: minority appeasement, pseudo-secularism, and pointing to anybody that countered this bigotry as guilt-shaming those people. All of this used to happen in blog posts and Facebook posts, but later a social media community developed around those issues. That's a different point. But I thought after the political victories of 2014 and 19, these ghosts were buried. But they are being exhumed again, and perhaps they are going to be buried again as well. So I think this is perhaps a debate that will go on for decades. So after the Prime Minister made the remark against, saying that he is above the Hindu-Muslim divide and his politics is not suited to that, I thought it was going to be the end of it. Then this tirade between Amit Malviya and P. Chidambaram started, which resulted in the tweet that we all saw. But I think from going on, it's going to be a two-pronged strategy from the Prime Minister. On one hand, he's going to counter the Congress. He's not countering the Muslims. He's countering the Congress as a political fighter. On the other hand, he will also try to put himself above the fray, saying that he's beyond the issues. This reminds me of another personality from the late 2000s, which is Barack Obama, who used to put himself above the fray of both Republicans and Democrats. So I think PM is going to follow this two-pronged strategy going forward.
It's going to be a two-pronged strategy. Now let me tell you the data. That's the strategy. But there is also data. And the data is also about the citizens of the country. According to the latest data from the All India Debt and Investment Survey and the Periodic Labour Force Survey, monthly per capita income, these are, I'm putting it in the graphics, Muslims happen to be the poorest religious group in the country. In fact, it appears that Muslims have the lowest asset and consumption levels among major religious groups. This means that Muslims overpopulate the ranks of the poor in this country. The opposition has reacted to Prime Minister Modi's statements. Right now, I just don't want to get into that because the data is telling us everything. Now, the question remains, how will Muslims benefit? If the controversy is around Muslim getting benefits, then what should be the shape of the Labharti program? Because benefits going to the Muslims cannot be the heart of the debate. So my question to you, and we will continue to play this data, my question to you is, how are Muslims supposed to benefit if there is a debate whether Muslims are getting the money which was supposed to be allocated for Hindus? How are people going to benefit?
Well, Kartikeya, this is a debate which I think, economists should be doing, but it is happening at the wrong time for the right reason for the politicians. It is happening right in the middle of a very, lackluster election with no one dominant narrative other than the reservation and Abki Bar 400 par, which will result in revocation of a reservation, as being said by the Congress and India alliance, and a BJP counter to that. I think, this subject requires a far more nuanced study, bereft of any kind of, prism, which is communal in nature. The tragedy of the situation is that whenever you mention the word minority, it is automatically assumed that, talking about Muslims, and, the frequency with which they are attacked increases a lot more when it comes to election. So I think, we have to separate the economics from the resistance or the temptations of the election to go for 2-minute noodles, and that is what is, botching up the entire narrative.
Okay, let me play out the bite of Asaduddin Owaisi now.
बच्चे ज्यादा पैदा करने वाली महिला कौन है, कौन से समुदाय की हैं, किसके गलों, हिंदू बहनों के गलों से मंगलसूत्र निकालकर किसको दिया जाएगा? एलियंस को दिया जाएगा? तो मुसलमानों को कह रहे हैं। 80-20 की जबान किसने की थी? शमशान खबरस्तान जबात किसने की थी? कपड़े देखकर पहचानो किसने कहा था? ये जो लव जिहाद, नुपुर शर्मा, ये सब कौन है? बुलडोजर, धर्म संसद में गालियां दी जाती हैं, तो सर ये तो पूरा प्रधानमंत्री तक जाता है ना, ये सब गलत है। वो कर रहे,
वो कह रहे थे कि अगर मैं ऐसी बातें करूं तो मैं प्रधानमंत्री बनने के योग्य नहीं हूं। आज क्या हो गया? मन बदल गया कि भीड़ बदल गई? मतलब क्या हुआ? कल कुछ कह रहे हैं, आज कुछ और कह रहे हैं, परसों कुछ और कहेंगे, तो भरोसा कैसे कर सकते हैं हम प्रधानमंत्री के लफ्जों पे? कोई वजन ही नहीं रही उनकी बातों में।
So, Ajit, my question to you is, benefits need to go to every community. Muslims are also citizens of India. Absolutely. My question, the questions which I am now framing, and we'll have the debate on this, is, then how do you ensure that the Muslims also get benefits? You don't get benefits under religious quota? Cool. Don't give it to them. It's part of our constitution. I also agree. Those benefits are reserved for ST and SC. But then, Prime Minister himself said that in his own state, because of the backwardness, a section of minority get it. Bohras get it. So, how do they get this benefit? Because ultimately, they are equal when it comes to the politics of Labhartis.
Absolutely. See, that's why, Kartikeya, I argued that the Prime Minister, when he governs as the Prime Minister of India, he talks of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. You are right. On the Labharti programs or Prime Minister Awas Yojana, I have done a lot of research on that, and there has never been a distinction. In fact, one of the senior officers, secretary level, once told me that in Madhya Pradesh, more Muslims were getting houses than the Hindus. He brought it up to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister said, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. If they deserve it, give it to them, but go scientifically. So on the issue of governance, I think he takes a Prime Minister's role, which is impartial to all communities. But when he's campaigning, he's no more, he doesn't think he's the Prime Minister. He has to, after all, get the votes for the BJP. He's the biggest vote getter. He's the biggest seat getter. He's a classic politician who maximizes votes and seats. So he goes for what we call a negative campaign, which might appear unfair, But it happens from both sides. The data that you brought up, if you remember, the Sachar committee report had made a similar claim. The data almost reflects the Sachar committee report. But mind you, the data clubs it into Islam and Hinduism. If you were to break that, disaggregate the data out of Hinduism into scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, the condition would be worse than Islam. So see here, what the Prime Minister does, there's a long tradition in India, right from the Constituent Assembly debates. Should scheduled caste, scheduled tribes be given reservation? Should Muslims be given reservation? There was a massive debate in the Constituent Assembly, and there were two things going on. One, there was a back deal in which it was argued in the back deal that if you want reservation for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, give up the reservation for Muslims, number one. And there is a lot of evidence if you read the Constituent Assembly debates. Number two, once the partition began with the Muslim League playing the divisive role, they completely removed reservation on the name of religion. So the answer is that whatever kind of help, whatever kind of initiative, whatever kind of subsidies you give to the Muslims, it should not be under Muslims as a religion, but as socially and educationally backward.
Let's call spade a spade. After the partition, the whole idea was that if you give reservation, it will lead to conversion. There was an intense missionary activity in India, and there is no doubt about it. Look at Northeast. In 200 years, the religious demography of Northeast has entirely changed. You have people from different denominations, and now 99% of them are Presbyterian. In last 700 years, the conversions have taken place in India. Yes, it would be too far-fetched to say that every conversion in India took place to Islam under the force of the sword would be an incorrect thing to say. I mean, so a lot of conversions took place because of the caste system. People moved out, a lot of people moved in, a lot of migration took place. Now, let me read out a couple of more things. As per the data, even non-SC, ST, OBC Muslims have a low share in regular job compared to other religions. In fact, it seems that the only non-SC, ST, OBC Muslims do better than SC, ST Hindus. Now, Muslims have even more challenges in the government job, again highlighted by such a commission. So, it's not that everything is rosy. So, Bhanu, my question to you is, I'm not getting into the politics of Bharatiya Janata Party or Congress, I'm moving away my discussion from them. I'm saying that, okay, fair enough, this is politics, it's a fair game. Then how do you ensure that, even Muslims get a benefit? If the benefit going to Muslims becomes so controversial that it starts to enrage majority community, then I think you have a problem. Majority community feeling angry that unka share liya ja raha hai, I think it can become an issue. Every citizen should be alert to it, because those who are not will undermine the basis of a liberal democracy. That is how liberal democracies fail. You don't listen into the majority sentiment and you conflate it with majoritarianism.
So it's a complicated, multi-dimensional issue, Kartikeya. I'm sure we all agree on that. Couple of points. One is, if you look at the data, the difference between the Hindus and Muslims is not very high. If you look at the per capita income of Sikhs, it's almost 50% higher than the Hindus. Okay, and like what the previous speaker was saying, if you actually disaggregate Hindus, the difference between Muslims and probably the SC, ST, OBCs will be much lower than the 300 rupees that is shown. Okay, that is number one. Second is this Labharti programs, this infrastructure program, these skill building programs, all this input based, human development based programs will actually lift all boats. The rising tide lifts all boats. It's a classic libertarian or liberal economic principle, right? That's something that the government is following. Okay. Thirdly, see, the productivity of the Muslim community depends on multiple things. For example, their female labor force participation and the level of education is much lower. Their financial practices are very different, right? And also, number of people actually coming to taking up higher education and shining is also lesser than number of people for other reasons, not for lack of opportunities. Okay, so it's a very complicated problem. We cannot reduce it to a one-dimensional problem of giving more subsidies to the Muslims. That is constitutionally prohibitive, and I think there are other ways that are being being designed, or if at all
my issue is not with that. I am on the same page with you. I am saying कि नहीं मिलना चाहिए धर्म के आधार पर किसी तरह का benefit इस देश में मुसलमानों को नहीं मिलना चाहिए. The partition has taken place. It will lead to conversion. This is my personal opinion. This will lead to conversion. I have a different point. But you can't discriminate ना. अगर गरीबी मुसलमानों में है तो उनको बेनिफिट मिलना चाहिए क्योंकि देश संविधान से चलता है और कानून से चलता है. It's like this. So I am saying if you make that issue a contest and if majority gets a sort of a complex कि हमारी चीज ले ली, that is really problematic in a democracy. That is what I told you. Then the minority becomes the other कि ये चुरा के भाग रहा है.
Yeah, so I think, you probably summarized the contention quite very well. But the problem is when the Congress doesn't look at it that way. The Congress plays minority politics, right? It wants minority consolidation. It says all of these things which are blatantly unconstitutional, right? That is exactly the Prime Minister is pointing out. We are actually looking at it as Prime Minister speaking again, doing a Hindu-Muslim thing, but he is speaking against the policies of the Congress. That is the subtle distinction that we have to see in this debate.
I think on this note, I'll thank both Ajit and Bhanu. But Brijesh, I as a journalist feel that every election is a Mahabharat, and even in Mahabharat, the Purna avatar of Vishnu, Lord Krishna, made rules, suspended them, broke rules, recreated the order of the fight. But then, in modern democracies, where the constitutions are the parameters under which you fight, I think there are certain Lakshman Rekhas. And I think one of the big Lakshman Rekha is breaking down in this election. And election at a central level has gone down at the level of a community. And I think it should be a food for thought. Because if it gets down to the level of the community, and if other community is labeled as a person, someone stealing away from the majority community, facilitated by another political party, then we really have a big problem on our hand.
Well, absolutely. It's like stigmatizing the others, or terming the
really
other community as others, and that is something which should have been avoided. I think, many praise that what the Prime Minister said day before yesterday about that I don't discriminate between the two. And the day I don't do it,
Brijesh, it tells me, and I think I'll call it spade a spade. Is BJP nervous? Is there a problem with the guarantee thing? Okay, Ajit, 45 seconds, Chief. 45 seconds.
There was a serious socio-economic status survey done during the first term, if you remember, of Modi ji. And the SESS data is right there, which has a very complex sort of criteria of giving whatever, all kinds of, let's say, subsidies to people. And under that scheme, the poorer Muslims would end up getting all kinds of help. And now the question of reservation is a separate issue. But in terms of getting all kinds of other benefits, Muslims have got it. So why not rely on the SESS survey? In fact, 2 rounds has been done, and one could continue that under any government.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. If you ask me, I don't even consider Muslims to be the minorities. They have bigger presence than many other countries in this country, a secular country called India. So I don't, that is why I don't use the word minority politics. I'm saying just in the context of the Muslims. But then, if it becomes a matter of stealing from the majority community, then it's a definitely issue. Thank you all of you for joining OnPoint. But as I promised you, there are 7 OnPoints waiting for you. Good night.